Welcome to the channel, and today I want to discuss what we can expect in terms of features for the next college football iteration. Some of the things that I will mention are leaks that have pretty credible backing, and others are generic fixes the EA team has mentioned to be coming to the game. With that being said, we do know that the game is finally in initial development as of a few weeks ago, so without further ado, let's get into it. So to get us started, I want to jump in and take a look at the leaked items that we have seen circulating around the internet the past few months. To give you a little background about the leaks, they have come from a few beta testers or people involved with preliminary questionnaires EA puts out every year before launching to get a feel of what the community wants. So to get us started, we have seen high school gameplay coming back, making its return to Road to Glory, similar to what we had in NCAA 14. Also, there were mentions of signing day in Road to Glory, something similar to what real college recruits do before they commit to a school. A trophy room has been rumored to return as well for dynasty mode. More storylines and better presentation in Road to Glory has been a big topic. Formation subs, real coaches, deeper news stories as well in dynasty mode, similar to what we have already seen in Madden 25. Game day strategies, again similar to the Madden 25, where you can kind of game plan for your opponent and get boosts in different facets of the game. Program point revamped, recruiting battles, which is something that's going to take place at the end of recruiting when there's only a few teams left. Expansion on current deal breaker systems with an emphasis on dynamic changes. And lastly, manual progression of players or a group of selected players. So that was a lot, but I want to just highlight a couple of my favorite things that I've seen so far. So by far, the very first one is going to be the trophy room if it's done correctly. Recruiting battles and manual progression of players is also big on my list. The trophy room will hopefully allow us to see other things than just trophies and things like past stat leaders for the season we have coached. Also, I mentioned that the leaks show that the manual progression for players is possible for a certain subset of players rather than complete control of all of your players. I would love to see less specific control for everyone rather than a very defined full control of a small group of players, but that's just me. Lastly, the recruiting battles mentioned would add some late season antics into the game, since currently by week 12 or 13 we have a generally good idea of the players we are going to get. Having these battles will allow us recruiting close players late into the season. I do see an initial issue with this in terms of recruiting hours you would have to allocate, since once a player commits, these hours come back to you and can be used elsewhere, but maybe it will have its own pool of points, or maybe there will be a base limit of how many battles you can get into at one time. So that's all for the leaks, but outside of this, we do know a few things that will for sure be in the game the next cycle. The first is 2 new teams in the Missouri State Bears and the Delaware Fighting Blue Hens. Both of these teams are set to join Conference USA and will be ineligible for postseason play for their very first season, although I am not sure how EA will implement that into the game. Along with this, UMass will be making the move to the MAC as its 13th team. One other thing that may affect the teams in the game will be the new ruling by the NCAA that will allow teams to have 100 scholarship players if they choose to. While this was ruled on and not much info has been released, we do know that the SEC has more or less ignored this and will still have teams with 85 scholarship players with 15 walk-ons per season. So I am not sure how EA will handle this, but I assume we will be stuck with the current 85 player per team model for the team composition. Before we get into the back half of the video, I would like to ask you all, if you're enjoying today's video, leave a like and a subscription below. And it's a completely free way to support the channel so we can continue to grow the channel going into next year. You all have shown so much love for the channel so far. I really appreciate it. But with that out of the way, let's get back into it. Outside of the other 2 groups we mentioned, there are a few other things I feel as though the EA team will add in 2026. The first would be a way to see the top 25 hardest places to play, since that was a big contention this season, since there was no way to look at it week to week. If memory serves me correct, I do think they mentioned early on in release or right before it that it was something that would be added in the next game, but I could be wrong. Obviously, more jerseys will be coming this next season, but I am curious on if the current ones will stay. From their thought process, anything that is expected to be worn this season will be in the game, and maybe a few throwback unis from this season will be included right at launch. Lastly, this wouldn't be a complete video on the topic if there wasn't a big missing item. There are definitely a few missing holes, things that are still just up in the air we don't know, or things that they really probably won't include in the game. One of these is going to be a more volatile transfer portal. I have so many seasons where no one transfers, but hopefully the more dynamic deal breakers they've mentioned will add more flavor to that. Another is a more customizable scheduling in and outside of conference. I'm really surprised this has not been mentioned, since things like high school and Road to Glory were about as confrontational as this at the start of the game cycle. And lastly, locked rivalries. This was for sure a promise not kept this game, so I am really unsure as to why this would not be a top priority going forward, but hopefully it has been overlooked since they are already putting it into the game and just hasn't been thought about or mentioned in any of these preliminary questionnaires or beta testing. And with that, that's all we had today, guys. So I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, I hope you all to see you all around in the future. I appreciate you being here, and I'll catch you in the next one.